Good. So we already saw a little introduction of Bootstrap, and let's try to see it in action and how we can use it. So the whole idea is, let's go and continue from the example that we were doing, hopefully in here, where you can see like the basic application we were creating. Let me go and start creating a little HTTP server. Remember that this can be installed using npm. And in this case, reload is the one that I like because it is going to be reloading the page for us. And this is how it currently looks. Remember that what we did was that we had like a very basic head, and then we just got a header with a main content, and inside that we have different sections, and each one of the articles we are going with one of these listings. Okay, so to start appending CSS to this, remember that what we said is that we want to use something like this. And then in this case, you can see Copilot is already starting auto-completing code for us. Let me actually disable it for a while so it doesn't get too noisy. And then remember that in here, you want to put something like from the current folder, look into the CSS file, and then I am going to create like that corresponding folder in here, which is going to be CSS. And then inside that, I'm going to create like just a basic main.css file. And from there, you can go and define like different things. Like for instance, overall in the body, I am going to put a margin of 50 pixels everywhere. And then that is going to be appending these things. And I can also just go and say, like, I want to have a font family serif or sans serif actually, or something like that. And then you can see it changes the fonts for everything. So for the moment, let's give it completely empty. Like we are not really going to add any rules, because what we want to start doing is just start adding Bootstrap. So remember, in order for you to do that, let's go here in the introduction, and then we can start copying the parts that we want. So I'm going to be appending the link for the CSS. And as you can see, very important, remember that the way that conflicts are solved on CSS is first by order. So we want to load first the Bootstrap and then our own CSS, because we want our rules to override the ones from Bootstrap. We don't want it to be backwards, that our rules are overridden by directly by Bootstrap. Now, if let's also append this one in case we want to use any JavaScript, but I don't foresee having any of those. If you realize that you are not including that, then it's better not to include it, because then your page is going to be heavier. And then just by doing that, let me go and show you by disabling this again. You can see that basically the whole font is changed. And then if I take all of these, and as Bootstrap say, we include all of that into a container, and then let me put that all the way here. One rule of thumb that I like doing is that I like adding like comments like this one, so I know what this div is for, okay? And then now you can see that I have a page that has some nice margin. Now, as I was telling you, usually one of the things I like, it's like remember that we added like this header in here. Let's say that maybe we want to put this as a menu or something like that on the side. Or for the moment, let's go and say that we are actually going to have the listings, but we are going to put the listings in here as a column 8. And then I take all of these listings in here and then put them in here. Again, let's go and say that this is going to be the listings, capital plural actually. And then we can collapse all of this so it's a little bit easier to see. Notice that prettier can actually make things more complicated in that sense for us. But then now you see that this is on the right, on the left, sorry. And then let's go and say that I'm going to create another column for, and notice how I'm creating this. I just write dot column dash 4 and emmet and VS Code just by completing from that to generate like the whole thing. So that way it's easier to write the code. And then I'm actually going to create in here like another thing that says create listing or something like that. And I'm going to add something in there later. So for the moment, let's just add some basic text in there, okay? And now you see that we have two nice, like that nice distribution on this side. Again, basically the only thing I did is that I added 8 columns on one side and 4 columns on the other. Now, if you want to get this even further, then the other thing you can do is that you can say, if I have a large screen, and I think it's LG, the one that we want, um, remember all of this, you can learn about it directly in here. So if you go into the grid system, these are all the different sizes. So this is for LG, for large. So if my screen has more than 992 pixels, then I want you to apply a scale of 8. But if it is smaller than that, which is going to be like a medium or smaller, then I want it to be like the whole 12 columns. And then the way I can do that is just by doing something like this. And what that happens is that then the page becomes responsive in the sense, fingers crossed, that I can just go and do this, and voila, all of a sudden, like my create listings go to the bottom. Okay, so you can put that in here. What else? So now that I have done that, then I can also start like appending some elements in here. Like maybe I want to organize this a little bit better. So it will be, actually, this is interesting. Like I think all of these ones, let's improve the hierarchy. So I'm going to change that. You know what? It will be easier just to do this. For the moment, I'm going to delete these ones. Okay. So we only have one listing. And then I am going to say, yeah, actually, you know what? I think these listings will look very good as a card. So let's go and take a look at what is the code for the card. So basically what we want is that we have something that is of the class card. In here, this is telling me that it's supposed to be on a div, but we can go and give it a try with the article that we have. So this is going to be a listing. And then if I want to append another class to that specific one, I can just do it with something like this. And then the thing I wanted to change is that this H2 seems too big, but we should respect that. So we should have listings in here. Remember that I told you before, every page should have one and only one H1. Okay, please write that down. And then everything from there should be an H2, which because it's a hierarchy, right? So I have my listings, and then each one of the listings is going to have a header, which I'm going to put in an H3, as you can see in there. And now I have this element, okay? Now, here I'm going to put the image on there. So basically the image, they have it in here. And basically I want this thing in here. I do have an image in here. Here is my image. So I will just add this, and then I will not need this anymore. And then I can put that up here. And then now it's getting better. And then it's trying to use all the space that it's available in there. So one of the things I could tell it, it's that we could either go and put them in here. Let's give it a try. Then I'm going to say, for the moment, let's go and say that it's a column 4. And for this to work, all of that is going to need to be on a row. Let's see if I can put it in here. And then now you can see that within the space that you have in here, which is supposed to be like a column 8, I am dividing that into 12 new columns, which is like a nested one. And then I'm dividing this one in 8. Now, this one is not showing up correctly. I think it's probably because Bootstrap wants me to do something like this. And then I think I can get rid of this for the moment. Yes, better. It's getting better now. And can I do something like this? Yes, maybe for the body, for the rest of that. Because there is another div. Apologies for the noise if you're hearing that. Um, Here, I'm going to create a card, the whole body for this. And then I can put that in here. Again, this is going to be the end of my card body. Okay. So that way I know what it's finishing in there. And then, good. This is making good progress. Then the header, it's a little bit, I think I can also put the header in here. Yes. So that appends and padding because he was looking too big. Okay. So having done that, the header, it's a little bit too big. So can go maybe with having like by 6, having them a little bit bigger. So that way we can have a couple of these. And then what else should I put in there? Like let's assume that you want to put something in there, like for instance, you have that button, right? So you can put that as an H, or in this case, I can go and say like an actions or something, and then I can have a button, and this is going to be of class button, and this is going to be my button primary. Beautiful, that works. And then rent or something. So if I go and I do that, then now I can see that button. And then finally, let's see if I can figure this one out quickly, so I don't have to do it manually. But basically, I don't want, actually, let's see if Google can tell us, like maybe Gemini or something. Bootstrap, make long div scrollable with max height or something like that. And I want to see what Gemini says. So there is a max height attribute for the max height of something. Yes, I wonder if there is a more elegant way of doing it in here. So we have the layout, the range, no, that's for the form. Here, columns, grids, options, color modes, components, optimize, forms, components, helpers, clear fix, position, stacks. That's a different thing. Stretch, link. There is a vertical roll. That's not probably what I want in there. We do have here the overflow, which is one of the ones I want. And then we have the visibility. I think I saw somewhere that you can do spacing, sizing. This is what I'm thinking. Beautiful. So yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I'm glad that I looked for that. So as you can see, when you need things, so if I append this is going to control the height. It's going to be like 100 pixels max. And then for the overflow, I want it to be overflow scroll. So if you want to control this by hand, completely by you without Bootstrap, then there is an overflow attribute that you can assign the scrollable for the value. But when you use it with Bootstrap, basically you just have to figure out what is the correct class that you have to use in there. And then fingers crossed. Of course, it didn't work on that one. I wonder. Oh, here, max. So it's probably that is like the recommended, but since the content is larger, then it is overwrapping. Come on, damn it. Let me go and take a look at this and see if it is. Oh, but it's putting like 100%. I don't want it to be. Can I tell it like a specific value? Can utilities to set the width and the height to the viewports as utilities. Damn it. So I guess I will have to put this manually. So in that case, for the moment, yeah. And then Copilot came back for the dead. Let me shut it out, shut it down for the moment. And then we want in here like a max height. What I was trying to get is like 100 pixels or something. I wonder if anyone figures out a way, more elegant way of doing it directly with Bootstrap. Maybe it's too small, so let's put 150 or something like that. Probably like a virtual height could be like a good option. And then making this scrollable. So we could probably make it better, but for the moment, I think this is good. And then again, this is one of the buttons. You can append many of the other elements, but I think this looks good enough for now. And then the cool thing about this, again, is that if you just go and start appending a bunch of these, and to so, oh yes, so I am appending all of these in here. I wonder if I can do it like this. That didn't work. So, no. Sorry. Yes, I do have my column 6. I wonder if it is because, like, what happens if I do it like this? Interesting. There we go. So basically, my problem in here is that I want this div, which is listing each one of the cards. And so I probably am going to put this out here. So basically, this is going to be my listing, and then this is going to be the end of a listing, okay? And that one is the one that is going to be the column 6. And then if I do that, beautiful. That's what I wanted to see, something like that. And then the nice thing about these rows is that, as I was telling you before, we just keep on reusing that, and the row has more space, then it will be just distributing and wrapping that to the next, okay? Finally, here very quickly on the create listing, we can go and use one of the forms, which will be like later we can use that for creating and adding new listings, okay? So if you come in here on the overview, you want to have something like that. So it shall actually go and create it from scratch. We want to have a form, and then for the moment, let's ignore the action. And then from that one, like basically what these ones in here are doing is just creating like an element for each one of the things that you're going to be adding. So I do have here the create listing, and then this is going to be, I'm going to be creating a form, like a label, and then I want this to be like a form label. So I'm going to be doing like label, form, label, right? Whenever you create a label, you want to say what input element or what uh, and remember that an element is each one of the pieces of the DOM. Like each one of these things is what we call an input. So it's created like with something like that. And you have to refer to which one you're talking about. But I usually prefer, instead of doing that, and I use that because it's useful even for React, what I do is that I just put the input inside the label, which I think it's approved as one way of identifying them, so that way I don't have to reference that, okay? And as you can see, we are supposed to put like the form control in there. If you want to put some text, then you can just put the form text, and again, like put like an extra text element or something. So when you look at something like this, then we have that, and then I can just put in here, and again, I apologize if you're hearing that noise, but let's say, for instance, this is going to be like the title or something. Whenever you're creating these inputs, it is very important that each one of your inputs is going to have the name, and that is going to be very important later because that is going to define how the variable that represents that is going to be looking like. So in this case, I'm just going to call it the title, and then I can just go and say, for instance, I can have a bunch of these ones. This could be the title. This could be like the price or something like that. And then this could be like the description for the moment. And Notice that the other thing you can do is that you can change the type of inputs. We are going to talk more about those later. But for the moment, I can do this, and then now this becomes an input, like an input but of type of numbers, okay? So if you want to start with a default value, you can also change that. In this case, like for instance, you could say, like the default value is like $120 a night or something. And hopefully you can just put something in here, which is ruining what I'm trying in there. But yeah, for the moment, let's go with this for not overcomplicating things. And then here on the form, the final thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to do another one that also has 3 elements. And I want to have a button, which is going to be a button. And this is going to be the primary. And then I want this one to be the create. And since I'm doing a form, whenever you create a form like that, basically, yes, I guess on the bottom as well. When I was doing is like was also putting margin on the sides. So whenever you have a form and that form has a button, if one of those buttons is of type submit, then that one is going to trigger the submitting of the information that you do. And whatever action you put in here is where it's going to be sending things to. For the moment, it's not going to do anything, just keep things in here. But let's go and say, like, I don't know, like a cancel button. And then this could be like, I don't know, secondary or something like that. And remember, this is not going to be that. And then this is going to do something else. And then I can just go and put some text in here and then hit create. And then notice that now here on the title, I have the things that I enter. It's going to be sent in there. So I'm going to be talking more about that in a future class. But for the moment, we can just get started with this. And then as you can see, this could be like the very basic stage of this. I guess the only final thing I want to do with this one, now that I'm looking up here, like that navigation bar looks very ugly. So you can also go and put, where is my nav bar? It's here it is, navigation bar. And then I usually just go and copy something like this. And then you start taking a look at what you're getting in there. Okay, remember, every time you get code from the internet, make sure that you understand everything that you're putting in there and you improve it. So for instance, I guess this is going to be like the brand. So we can go and say, this is going to be the San Francisco Airbnb listings, and that it's a link. Let's put it also as the H1. We can do that. This is the toggle, the navbar toggle, so we can just keep that, and this is going to be the icon that we are going to see in a second. And then we have this collapse, and we wanted to add 2 links, one home and one about. So let's make sure that they are added. I have one for the home, which is this one, and the other one, it is going to be for the about page, which I think I never really listed. I didn't, right? So for instance, I can go and say, this is going to be in the about HTML, whereas this one in here is going to be just the index HTML. And I can go, basically this is saying from the current folder, that is what that dot is doing. And then I don't, let me go and show you how it looks like if I do it like that. Then now you can see I have a very nice navbar, but I also have all of these things for demonstration. Since I'm not doing anything with any drop down, let's make sure that I don't have any leftover code that I don't need. So I can get rid of that. I don't need the search either, so I can get rid of those as well. And then now we have our page. And then this takes me to the about page, which I think I can just copy and paste in here. And then, where am I? Here. Let's create a new file and call it about HTML. And then I can just paste the same thing, and we can keep the same navbar. Sadly, for the moment, we have to duplicate stuff, but then here all the way in the div, we are going to put just lorem code in there. And if I refresh, then I can go to the home and I can go to the about. I still don't have the, I think I can fix that quickly. Let's see if I can get it to work. But then you just have to figure out things like this. Like in this case, this one is saying that this is the active one. So when I'm in the about, this is going to be the one that is the active. So if I go now, here you can see it's very subtle, but it's a little bit darker in here. For that one, if you prefer like the other one, you can see that this navigation bar in here has a different color. So I can get rid of that. If I do that, that's in the about. And then we put that in here. And then did I save? Oops. So I guess that's the default as well. So probably that's why it wasn't changing it too much. But yes, you can go and start looking at all of the different elements in there. And then just explore like those things. Okay.